Welcome to the first episode of Curriculum Matters at UES. I'm Mike Berry. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Technology, and I have the most important person. Go ahead.
I'm Rachel Whalen. I'm the principal at Union Elementary School.
So you and I were talking about, you had some feedback from some of the parents in your group about getting more information about the school out there and more interaction with families and caregivers around questions that they have about the school, right?
Mm-hmm. And so, so we have a caregivers council here at UES, and just like in the other schools. And one of the topics that came up is always just like, how do we get information out to families? There's always lots of questions about things like report card and curriculum. And so I brought that to you because one way that we've done that traditionally in schools is info nights that happen, during the dinner hour and are sparsely attended, or it's hard for people to get to. And then we went back and forth for a little bit, and we talked virtual, and then we landed here on what if we just got together, chatted, and dispensed that information in a way that would be really accessible for lots of folks.
Yeah, no, it's great. You put out a survey.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of an open survey. It's forever open, right? And we got these questions, these fantastic questions from the community. And what we thought for today, and just a kind of a 20-minute spin here, we'll kind of start at the top and work our way down. Some of these topics would be worth a whole hour or two, and maybe we can do that down the road. But for now, we want to try and address as many questions as we can with some basic information, and then kind of dig deeper as we go forward. So are you ready for the first one?
I am.
Okay, the first question, and I'm going to summarize a little bit, but it was a big one, and it's something that we wrestle with almost every day, but it was, what is proficiency-based learning? And this person shared that they're unsure of where different points of proficiency-based learning kind of rise up in their experience as a caregiver. And also, like, how is it different from what they experienced going through school several years ago? And so, yeah, Rachel, that's like you can sum that up in 30 seconds. That would be great.
I'll do my best. So proficiency-based learning, I'll start off by saying, it definitely looks a little different, I think, going through the levels, but here at the elementary school, the idea behind proficiency-based learning is that we don't want to just end at this like summative point of like, here's your opportunity to demonstrate your knowledge, and now you either know it or you don't, and we're done and we're moving on. The idea is that we want learning to be part of a feedback cycle that kids are engaged with, and really curiosity driven and driven by a learner's mindset instead of a task driven mindset that, maybe the report cards and schooling that you and I and many others experienced was driven by. So the idea with proficiency-based learning, what it looks like here at UES is we use these kind of we call them reporting measures, and they're like buckets that contain various standards from the Common Core. And so, for example, one of those buckets might be decoding. There's a lot of skills that are attached to decoding. So we don't want to just, in the past, you might have just checked the box. Yes, the kid can decode. The kid can't yet decode. And this is more of an idea of what pieces, what skills toward decoding do they have, and where do they fall kind of on this continuum? And so in an effort to make proficiency-based learning bridge for those of us who are used to an alphanumeric grading system, we do have numbers attached to it, but I really think of it as about a continuum of like, this is where a kiddo's at, this is where we want them to go, what are all the skills in between that they need to master to become proficient in that skill. So you have levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. So level 1 is like that very emerging, possibly not even really had exposure or instruction to that content yet. Level 2 is really built a lot on vocabulary and foundational background skills. And then level 3 is, these are the criteria that say a student has has this skill. They have all it, and they have to have everything that comes before it as well. So a lot of times we'll have a student who is, seems proficient in, something like decoding or addition of double-digit numbers or whatever the reporting measure is, but they might not have all the prerequisite vocabulary and foundational skills. And so that's why we have half measures on that scale of like 2.5 and 3.5. The idea about the 4 in proficiency-based learning, or what we think of as like the excelling kind of branch of that, is that idea is that once a student is proficient in that learning, they are then taking it to the next level and synthesizing that learning, applying that learning, using that knowledge to expand and create. It's not just about adding more work or maybe harder work. It's about how is that student applying their knowledge if they are truly proficient.
I heard a great analogy about proficiency-based learning, and then I'll give some caveats about it. But one was thinking about building a Lego building, and that each block are those skills that in order need to be there. Now imagine building the Lego building and leaving some blocks out. That is more what you saw in the traditional education model that we went through, where a student's several attempts at a skill or a strategy were averaged, and that's how you did, and then we move on. Where in proficiency-based learning, we make sure that each of those blocks are in place before we move on and move up and move through, and that gives this individualized roadmap. Now, the caveats are for this caregiver that was asking this question. It's a great question. Vermont is a proficiency-based education state that has struggled to figure out how to do it well. Because we still have some of the previous traditional tools in place, like the report card, and grades and transcripts, and all of those things are still kicking around. So there's like this purist model of proficiency-based learning that is really difficult to do. And then there's kind of where we are in the mix of working through that and really unpacking it. And I will say, I think that MRPS and UES has done a great job digging into this work. It is messy. It's not super clear. We're not where we want to be with it, but we are making huge moves in that direction. And I know at UES, I think it was last year, maybe a little bit before that we started really sharing the proficiency scales with families and caregivers so that they could get a little bit more out of the report card. They could see what that means. What does a 3 mean on this line, and kind of understand it. So it's a great question. It's super hard. And it's unique at each building, but at UES, I think the work we've done around the reporting measures is really helpful. We want report cards to mean more, but we also want families and students to be able to know what the next progression is, right? So on those scales, like Rachel was saying, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 for kindergarten, but then after 4 at kindergarten, there's a 1 at grade 1. And that learning progression goes right up through so that you can see that roadmap for a student. But yeah, that topic, that's a whole, we should probably just dedicate like an 8-hour podcast.
I was going to say it could be its own podcast.
Pretty good. So great question. We'll move on to the next question. We're not done with that question, by the way.
No.
We'll go back to that. But so there was this question. This one's probably a little more towards me. But it was a question around what's UES thinking about AI and whether or not we think AI has a role in kids' schooling, both as a learning tool and support, but also a need for AI literacy. You want to take that, Rachel, or you want me to take it?
I mean, how about I start and then I'm going to toss it back to you. So we have an AI committee that's working across the district, and we're looking at different frameworks because, this is one of those uncharted territories where there's not a lot of models out there yet, but there are some really strong ones. And so our work has been really about building our literacy as the educators, and not really yet focused on what this looks like in front of kids, knowing that it's out there in front of kids and kids are accessing it. But in terms of, our role, we're really building up our capacity. One of the things that's exciting for me when I look through the AI frameworks, most all of these have suggestions that we just don't even touch AI in elementary school. Like kids are not interacting or utilizing AI tools. The focus at the elementary level is really focused on the important critical thinking skills and building creativity and the types of skills that enhance your opportunities with AI versus, because the worry is always AI is taking away our ability to create and think critically. And this in the AI frameworks that I like the most are really focused on building up those critical thinking skills and having kids become problem solvers and having kids be really building up their critiquing skills too. And their, you want them to you want to teach them how to second guess and critique and reflect. And so all of that is the work that we would be doing at the elementary level, if we were following one of these frameworks, while also building up digital literacy, AI literacy around the fact that, okay, this technology exists out there, but helping kids understand things like concepts of what's real and what's pretend, and how can you be a detective and figure out, is that a real image? Is this an AI generated image? Because those are the kinds of things that kids are going to need a lot of support with. Adults need a lot of support with too, in terms of accessing a world that has more and more AI created material in it.
Yeah, 100%. Well said. I think there are a couple things I would add to that. So as a district, we're doing a lot of work around AI. And because we've had the opportunity to watch other districts across the nation and the world move with us too quickly, one of the lessons we learned early on is that start with the adults, make sure that we understand what's going on so that we are able to really be confident in our conversations with students about this. And I know that the state of Vermont is going to be releasing guidelines soon. And I believe those guidelines are going to mirror mostly the North Carolina plan, which does have K through 5 not physically interacting with AI, but definitely talking about AI through allegory and practice and digital citizenship and all of those things. So I think that's the direction we're going in. And I know, and I say this with all honesty, we are doing a lot of work with AI as a district to really understand where we're going with that. I think that there are, this person asked about opportunities for learning and instruction. I think there are some things that we're already seeing that we're able to really lean on AI for some positives, particularly around things like translation, that our ability to support caregivers and students that require translation supports has exponentially improved through the use of AI as a background tool. That doesn't mean putting a student at a computer and having them do their learning there. It just means that we're able to take materials and make them more accessible. We're able to communicate better and more efficiently and effectively with families. And that's been amazing. And I think we're just now starting to understand ways that we can use it for other students in leveling text or, really diagnosing what's going on and how do we address it, but while the whole time maintaining that human to human element as the primary thing. So I do think that there are some opportunities that we're just starting to crest into, but I think you and I can both attest, we've been spending a lot of time talking about technology at UES. And you all recently, your leadership team just kind of engaged with a technology compass that's going to be used to kind of make decisions about why and when do we use technology and how often and all of those things. But your school as a whole is one of the most tech aware
Mhm.
communities that I interact with on a daily basis, as in we want to make sure we're not doing too much.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing. So lots of AI stuff. Another topic that I think could be an entire 8-hour episode. So
Yeah.
maybe we'll come back to that one. I think we've got time for one more today. Let's see. So I'm going to read this one, Rachel, and then this is for you. You ready?
Yeah.
I'm interested in learning more about how UES and our district approach our students' social, emotional, and mental health. There's mention in this question of, that there's a lot to learn around this and concerns about post-COVID world for kids. What are we doing to discover and understand those needs and mitigate the triggers that may lead to unsafe behaviors so that school is a place where every kid's learning potential can be unlocked? How are we advocating at district and state levels for our students' mental health? And how can caregivers most effectively join the cause?
Great question. So I'll start by just sharing an overview. Here across the district, we have a philosophy around SEL, and that philosophy is built around the idea that we want to, when we're thinking about social emotional learning and we're thinking about behavior, we want to be focused on skills versus traits. And what that does is it allows us to target a lagging skill versus placing blame on the individual child. Because blame leads to shame, and shame is a trigger, and that leads to increased behavior. So what we're doing is our director of social emotional learning, Jess Murray, and at each school we have a resiliency team, which is made up of folks who are well-versed in social emotional learning, so school counselors, social workers, SEL interventionists. And so they did a lot of work, and we've adopted basically standards and prioritized skills for social emotional learning. And one of the ways those are used is here at UES, we have weekly grade level, what we call CT meetings, collaborative team meetings. And the first half hour of those meetings is always focused on social emotional learning. And every other week, what that work is Linda Beaupre, our assistant principal, meets with a team and they talk through students who they're noticing are needing additional support. And they use those prioritized skills to identify, okay, what's the lagging skill here? So it's less focused on like this student keeps getting into trouble or this student isn't paying attention. Well, what's keeping them from doing that? Because one of the foundational pieces of our philosophy is that kids will do well if they're able to, right? And so what Linda and the teams do is identify students who might need additional support through our MTSS system. And then those students are brought to our resiliency team. And so we're approaching, the tier 2 and tier 3 with tier 2 and tier 3 supports that way. At the tier 1 level, the alternating weeks, we have a tier 1 SEL coach here at UES. Her name's Carrie Gilman. And so Carrie meets with teams, and she's really focused on the environment in the classroom and, how teachers are interacting with students and building up teachers' capacity for social emotional learning. It is when we've done so much work here for so long with social emotional learning at UES. In my years here as a teacher too, I can't really imagine not having it embedded into the day the way that we have it here. There's really an awareness that even academic learning times have a social emotional skill with them, right? Whether it's perseverance or, executive functioning or self-awareness, those things are all happening when we're approaching academic tasks as well, or academic learning. So that's kind of like a very broad, quick overview of SEL here. I would say, going back to the skills over traits piece, we also are really focused on building our restorative practices here. And so that's something district-wide that we're working on. And so our resiliency teams have all been participating in training around using restorative practices. And so that could look like doing restorative circles in classrooms after a difficult situation, or maybe there's a problem at recess that needs solving. And so it gives everyone in the room an opportunity to share. And again, it's not focused on a particular student. It's focused on, okay, what do we need to fix here? What can we all be better about to move us forward? And so, yeah, so the restorative piece, focusing on skills. And we also, for our students who are needing the highest level of support, we engage in some work built off of Dr. Ross Green's philosophy around collaborative problem solving. And so again, the idea is that we're really focusing on a targeted skill that we want to build in that student. And what are we doing across all tiers of support to build that skill and support that student?
Nice. And I think also in that question was, what can parents and caregivers do? And I don't know if this is the right answer or not, but from my perspective, one of the things that the community can engage in is supporting those community-based resources around mental health, food insecurity, homelessness, transportation. All of those things kind of impact a student's life. And so those are things that honestly, I think that the district could use help with in terms of the community, just lending their support and voice to those areas as well. And to keep asking questions like that. That was a good one. So those we got a total of, we're up to 8 questions, and they're all pretty amazing questions, but those are some big topics. So I think for today, that's probably a good tackle. And then we'll just keep going down the list. But maybe what we'll do, Rachel, is we'll take a look at the themes, and maybe we can do thematic based episodes that kind of dig a little deeper into one topic next time.
That sounds great.
Okay, that's it. That's episode 1 and done.
Great.